Hello.
Amazing. Hi.
Hi.
What's up?
This week we're talking about solo, doing things solo, being solo, independence, by yourself.
INDEPENDENT. Do you know what that means?
Yes. And to kick us off, I remember one time when I had an opportunity to do things solo, and it was called MORP in high school. Prom backwards. It's when the girl asks the guy. And this was my opportunity to ask this boy who I've had a crush on since probably like third grade. We were always in the surf circle together. And he was always really quiet. And I was like, I'm going to ask. So we get out of class. He's like a grade above me.
So you're in high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in 10th grade.
Okay.
We get out of class. I wait for him to come around. And I was like, hey, so like, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, do you want to go to MORP with me? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And by asking him, I had invited myself on the senior bus.
Oh, he was older.
He was
Man.
older, yeah.
Okay.
So a bit nervous for a lot of reasons, but I go and I'm excited, but mainly nervous.
Terrified. That's so scary.
Yeah.
Like,
and I didn't know any of the girls.
yeah.
And I kind of knew the guys from surfing, but not really. Like this was just kind of a new friend group. Mm-hmm. And we show up and everybody's drinking. And, we're casually drinking. They've got those horrible mixers and things are flowing and everything.
It's like the most disgusting vodka.
Not great. Oh. And so, we take photos and then we get on the party bus. And instantly he's very like, hey, Ivy, hey, way more than he ever has before. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's like opening up and he's just being so cool.
Like really into you, like doing the leg touch and stuff. Oh, yeah.
And then I swear within 20 minutes, he was like head rolling back, was not there. And I was like, hey, are you okay? Shaking his arm. And his head's kind of like dead weight on each shoulder. And I lift his head up and I was like, are you good? Projectile vomits onto me in my face.
In your dress.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
And I was like, oh, wow. But the bus was moving. There was you can't pull over a party bus. There's stripper poles, loud music. No one's stopping this thing. I was just aghast. And so I was like, okay.
Soaking.
Yeah. There's a sink. I take a full-blown like sink shower while this bus is moving. People on the stripper poles, people drinking out of handles. And I'm like scrubbing everything. He's laying down on the seat. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, make the best out of the situation. Yeah. I clean myself up a little bit and I get back out there and I'm dancing. I'm having fun. I'm a little wet, but so is everybody, steam in the air. Yeah. So I'm like, this is fine. Like, steam in the air. We had a little bit of a rough start, but we're going strong now.
Yeah.
And, dancing, having a good time. And I remember thinking like, wow, this night's really turned around. And I'm dancing it up. And then I'm like, I should probably go check on him. He obviously drank too much when no one was looking, or I don't know what that was. And he's like on his side and I like lean him up and I was like, hey, are you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. Projectile vomits on me again.
A second time.
And at this point, I'm like, I just dried off from my first episode. And I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to get off this bus. And I kind of like look out the window because those windows are so tinted black. And I like see we're in Camp Pendleton. And Camp Pendleton is a 30-mile stretch between San Clemente and San Diego that there's no off ramps. There's nothing. You're on it. So I'm like, okay. And I, clean myself up to the best of my ability, but it's in my hair. It's everywhere,
Caked.
And I go to the front of the bus and I was going to like tell the bus driver like, hey, next stop, can I just like get off? I'm going to call my parents and go home. And I look and our friend Vlad is driving the bus with a handle of Jack and a spliff in one hand.
Oh my God.
And he's driving and I'm like, where is the bus driver? And he like nudges behind him, like throws the head back. And I see the bus driver getting a lap dance from one of the girls.
Stop.
And I was like,
oh my God.
Wow. I don't know what to do with myself.
This is taking a turn.
Yeah. And people are just getting loose in the back and I'm in the front. And what if Vlad crashes the bus? I don't know.
Who knows if he has a license?
Oh, certainly not.
Certainly no.
Vlad, he was from Russia.
Vlad does not have a license.
Not saying people from Russia don't have licenses, but he was like the foreign exchange student.
Yeah.
Chances are he didn't go to driving school as well as all the other stuff. But I was like, he was always the wild kid. Anyways, we get off at the exit and go to In-N-Out, which is what you do. And I call my parents and they see me and I look like a little drowned rat covered in throw up. And I was like, I want to go home.
You're like, this is it.
And they're like, okay. And then I felt bad because the kid I was with was always like the quiet, nice kid that followed the rules and like never went to parties or anything. So I like called his mom and got him to get picked up. And I was just
that was
like,
nice of you.
Of course. I didn't want to, but like also, anyways, moral of my story is do things by yourself.
Do things by yourself. Do things solo.
You never know where it'll lead you.
You never know.
Because even though that was a really interesting evening, I'd say it was, at least a good story.
You got a good story out of it. Look, you're still remembering it 10 years later.
Yeah. And, I think I had been on like 5 or 6 party buses in my high school career, but that one was definitely the most memorable.
Oh, it truly sounds like it, unless you have another one like that.
And, it can be scary doing things alone. I just think how it's like incredibly important to like step off those cliffs and go for it.
I mean, even as a teenager, like the older, quote, the older kids who were like 2 years older than us, like when you're in high school, that just seems like such like a departure from where you're at.
Oh,
and
huge.
Then you get to college and same thing. And it's like at all these points in life, like the older kids always seem so scary but it's like less scary than doing something on your own, So you're like, okay, I'm going to break through this. Like I'm going to hang out with this other crew I don't know. And it's like, even as an adult, it's still, breaking into those like groups of people that you don't know anybody is really scary, but it's equally as scary doing something solo too. And arguably more so because you don't have anybody to lean on. Mm-hmm. You can always kind of find that person who's like, you kind of hook on with them. Like that's when we met. Like we were like both actually traveling solo.
Yeah.
And we had gone to our friend's wedding and you were 100% solo. I was 100% solo. We weren't even staying with anybody. And that was how we met. I mean, we kind of hooked on to each other and like that wasn't planned at all, but it was a really fun and incredible outcome of doing something on our own.
Yeah. For me, I think the part I get nervous about when doing things on my own is that first initial bit, when you walk into the room or the situation. And I always am like, okay, a few rules in my head are like, I always look above everybody's heads because I don't want to like be like searching for people's icon. I don't know. I just want to like gather my thoughts. So I like when I walk in, I want to hold my head high.
Yeah.
And that's like my one. And then I don't want to be on my phone.
Right.
I want to just like be as open as possible
and engaged and like interested in what people have to say. Cause I love doing that. Cause you get to find out all these little pieces of information about people and you don't know their story. Like you could have really parallel experiences and, it's like uncovering like a little, puzzle where you're like, oh, this fits into each other and that's how we're similar and that's how we're different and that's how you can teach me something. And, it's just like terrifying going into that though.
What would be a good tip that you would say? Because for those of you that do not know, Lauren is an expert at this. You can throw her into any situation and I'd say within 10 minutes, she's like the main life of the party. She's already made 10 friends and she's got 10 different places to stay across different countries.
Yeah, that is true. I think I'm resourceful because like I'm an only child. So I've never had like a sibling partner that I've been, raised with, whether it's, vacations or family events or other events. So I remember having this feeling from a really young age of like going to like holiday parties with my parents and being the only child under like, they were like the 20-year-old kids home from college.
Right.
And I specifically remember this one party my parents took me to. It was like a holiday party, a coworker of my dad. And all the kids were like teenagers or early 20s. And they were like, do you want to go watch like The Ring? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, like totally.
Scary movies,
and I was
sign me up.
Sign me up. And I probably was like 10 or 11.
Oh, honey.
And I'm like, but I'm like such a little cool kid. Like I'm hanging with the older kids. But even at, like how well I played that off, it's like I would be terrified. I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I think still I had that moment in social situations. Like, yes, I thrive on that and I really enjoy that. But talking about like not having your phone, like making eye contact with people, asking them questions, showing them you're interested. And I am genuinely interested because everybody has a story to tell and that's fun for me to uncover. So I pride myself on being a really good listener. Like I like to listen and, I would say, put the phone away. Like, what do you actually want to know about these people? Like, who are they? Where do they come from? You have no idea. It's this whole new slate that you get to uncover, whatever. And that's like the fun in life, right? We're so connected now. It's like, what do they say? Like that we're 6 degrees of separation from most people on this earth. That could be a totally wrong statement.
No, own it. I love it.
It's like we're so from everybody. Like,
what do you mean by that?
So we're only 6 degrees of separation, like the most degrees of separation we have at this point because of social media and, technology. We really aren't that separated from everybody else on this earth. So, it's nice to get to have these moments and we all do it. We're like, oh, who do you know? Like you look on Instagram, who are our mutuals? And it's such a thing. And it's like, well, what's the fun in that if you just know everybody?
Right.
Like try to come at it from this point of discovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
and I hate when people ask, what do you do? Like, I want to ask every question in the world before that one.
Yeah.
I will not touch that question. Although, like, I'd rather be like, what lights you up? What's your passion? And typically, people will come around to it, but I can't stand that question.
I know. It's so funny. It's like the first date question, too, where it's like, you don't want to feel like you're on an interview.
Right.
You're not like trying to read your resume off to them. Yeah. At least maybe not yet. But it's more, it's like, okay, can I have a conversation with this person about what makes them tick rather than like what they do every day?
Yeah.
That's boring. But I even do that like when I'm solo and I like to take myself out to eat dinner solo. I usually like to sit at the bar and my like security blanket is I bring a notebook because I don't want to be scrolling on my phone. So I'll either bring like a little book I'm reading or I'll bring a notebook and I'll like write things down just to kind of like, because I get nervous not having something occupying me.
Right.
That's that's really scary to me, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people, but it gives me that security that I have something to do.
Right.
And look like, and it's more too about the perception you think other people are going to have of you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that person's eating. So that used to run through my head. Oh, they're alone. Like, what's wrong with them?
Right. And that's it. Nobody cares. Like
No one cares.
Everybody's in their own little bubble. It's so fun eating alone and like looking around.
And you make weird eye contact with people. Like, You catch them and then you're like, did we mean to look at each other?
They're on a date. You're like, sorry.
You're just like eyeballing them from behind their date's head.
You start eating their food.
The same thing. You order the same meal as them.
You pull up and sit at their table.
Hi, it's me.
We don't go up to random couples and be like, her? What
Really?
You told me you were working tonight.
I can't believe this. Just start crying.
Just going from restaurant to restaurant, just ruining people's lives.
That's actually what I do.
She's like, I bring my notebook to write down
how
many people I've messed with tonight. But I think that's super important. Like going to restaurants alone and also traveling alone.
Yeah.
I know, like, I have some girlfriends that will tell me that it's, you know, they've been in a relationship for a long time, or they've been in kind of codependent relationships, or like they have a hard time doing things alone. And I think like it's always scariest in the beginning, but like the amount of character building you get from jumping off that cliff, doing something alone, doing the scariest thing that you thought you would possibly do.
Yeah.
Chances are you're going to meet someone pretty immediately, make a friend. If you don't, it's okay, because like you just get to know so much about yourself, and that whole journey alone, you grow so immensely.
Totally. Well, and it's funny, I've gotten to the point now where I think about, because I've been single for quite a while, and so traveling solo is what I do, if not with girlfriends,
right,
or kind of like a combination of both. But now I think I'm like, oh, it'd be so funny to have a partner to travel with. Like, oh, I would almost miss traveling solo or like travel. But here's the thing, like you don't have to do just one. You can always continue to travel solo. My mom actually just went, or she's on a 3-week trip to India without my dad.
I love it.
So like even in her 60s, after being married for 40 years, they're doing, you know, this time apart, and she's going on a solo trip. And I just think that's so great, because you can always continue to find that time to be alone. And I think getting too caught up in someone else, you lose that maybe. I don't know. And it's not to say it's wrong, but I think there's just so much power in doing things on your own.
Yeah. And like, I prefer to travel alone. Like,
You do?
I prefer to do that. Like if I have a girlfriend that wants to meet me somewhere, great. If I have somebody that wants to meet me somewhere, fantastic. We can do that. But like, I don't want to wake up in the morning every morning and be like, so what do we want to do today? It's like, no, I need my me time, and then we can do a little togetherness time. But it's gotten to a point now where like I'll go hang out with people and I have to come back and like gather my...
You need like a little centering.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know the difference between introvert and extrovert. I think introvert is how do you regain your energy? Do you regain it with people, or do you regain it alone? Or like,
oh, cool. Yeah. That makes sense.
And I don't know. I think because I like being around people. Like it definitely hypes me up, but like I need my me time to kind of get grounded again, or else I'm just like this flighty butterfly going around like I don't know who I am anymore. I've already like just talked to so many people,
spiraling, like completely,
eyes twitching.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God. No, and it's fun too, like traveling solo, but I actually did like a solo-ish trip last year that was really interesting. So I went to Greece with my girlfriends last summer, and we had a fabulous time, like just lived it up and had so much fun. And I ended up meeting this guy in Greece.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
You know, just on the dance floor one night.
Stop it.
Like fist pumping. Actually, no, I was on top of the bar dancing.
Of course.
And I just spotted him. And we ended up, you know, getting to know each other. And he invited me to come back to Europe. And I ended up like, so we kind of vetted him as like a
I was
friend
just
group.
about to say, how did you vet him? Because Lauren, that sounds like a great opportunity, but a lot of times you don't want to go with a man you met on the dance floor to another country.
You don't. You really don't.
Unless you vet him, of course.
Unless you vet him.
So how did you decide it was all right?
So my girlfriends met him. We met his friends. It ended up like, we had like some time to sort of get to know them a little bit. And then when I came back to the States, it was decided like months later, when he invited me to come visit. So yeah, it wasn't like an immediate thing, but it almost was.
Yeah.
And then, we kept talking and sort of, got to know each other a little bit. And then that was my okay, like he's not gonna take me. I can take him.
Well, you don't want to get taken.
We've all seen that movie.
Yeah.
So I think like just really meeting friends is great. Like getting to know where they're from, getting to know them. And then I, went out, I had a few days on my own, but then I also spent a little bit of time with him, and it was a really fun trip. And that was a terrifying trip. Like
Why?
in the sense where I was like, what am I doing? Like I'm flying to a foreign country.
I'm flying to meet a guy. And
like, and
were you
questioning.
staying with him? Did you get your own spot? How did that work out?
We were staying together.
Okay. Bold.
Yeah. Bold. It was truly an affair.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, it was one of those things where I was like, am I going to look back and regret not doing this in 50 years? Maybe. Yeah. But as long as you, some people might say I'm crazy and that obviously could have ended really poorly. You're probably right. But at the same time, it was kind of a once in a lifetime solo travel, but also not solo travel.
Right. Well, I think it's important for girls traveling alone to know like basic things because we both grew up traveling alone at like a pretty young age. And there's things that like our Mr. Safety dads drilled into us. And it's just like, I personally wouldn't go out solo in a place that I know is a bit more sketchy, or even just in general. Like I'm not going to go anywhere alone, really. If I do, I'm doing it around like lights and beelining it from one destination to another, having your friends have your location, always carrying like mace or something. Just being smart.
Just being smart about it.
And being aware, like always looking over your shoulder and notice things.
Yeah.
Follow your gut.
What are your biggest travel tips like for when you're alone?
Pack light.
Yeah.
That's always a big one.
Oh, that's such a good one because it's hard if you're going on a trip where you have to bring gear, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But you're like arms dead, dragging bags through the airport, like trying to get it in a small foreign car, or like you're on public transportation and you're like holding a board bag like it's a body next to you, and then you've got your backpack and it's so hard. You're like profusely sweating. I'm always like in a tank top in the middle of winter, like pouring sweat.
And on that note, I think when you're going from destination to destination, be like meaningful and purposeful with where you're going. Don't have a eat, pray, love moment, at night in an alleyway,
it's
like
not realistic.
writing in your journal, looking up at the stars, integrating, just like get from location to location.
Yeah.
And then, when you meet somebody, do it like, say you meet a guy and he wants to take you on a date, go to a popular restaurant, meet him there. Maybe even tell the hostess or someone that you're like meeting somebody for the first time in case something goes weird or you
just like want to get out of there and you're like,
you just always got to have a way out.
Always
always have a way out. But also I think entering college alone is a really cool moment that people are forced into that normally wouldn't travel alone or haven't traveled alone yet, or, because it's such a big moment of like, okay, this is my first time out of the house.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this completely alone. I don't know anybody. I'm moving into a dorm room or wherever you're moving into with people I have no idea about. And that's just, it's so raw and like just a precious time in your life to be like, okay, here I am.
I get to do things my way now, which is cool. It's interesting. Yeah, you make a good point. Like your solo experiences don't have to be these big, grandiose, like my mother flying to India on her own. Like it totally doesn't have to be that. It can be as little as I have a good friend I went to nursing school with, and she lives in New York, and she said to me, she's like, I love that you love to travel. That's so amazing. She's like, it's not for me. She's like, my biggest, like, being uncomfortable moment is like going to Brooklyn and having dinner. And I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
Like, so it doesn't have to be, like we enjoy the solo travel and the big trips and doing things that make us feel uncomfortable. But like, you can get that same level of, feeling uncomfortable and doing things solo by, stepping into another neighborhood in your town or just like doing something you haven't done in your city. Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Yeah. And you say getting that feeling of being uncomfortable as if it's like something that people want to do. But it should be like making yourself uncomfortable is so important for a lot of reasons. But I think when you get too comfortable, things just get, you get stuck in your ways and then you start getting old.
Yeah. And then you're 40.
Yeah. Like that's why I love the entering college alone thing, because it's one moment that like you are absolutely forced to be uncomfortable and not know anybody. And when else do you do that? When you start a new job, I guess.
Yeah. And like it's going to be, college is interesting because it's like, okay, you're going to make your own mistakes. You're going to learn how to like vet people again. It's like a totally new community. You have to learn how you show up and you work. And it is very like intuitive into like your own self and how you function. And it's, great to continue to have those experiences. Like you said, new job, like that's always going to be, something scary. My friend just left her job of 10 years and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe people do this more often. Like, she's like, I left my apartment. She moved to Mexico. She doesn't have her job anymore. And she's just like, I feel like I'm in my 30s, like learning how to do things all over again by myself. And it's terrifying, but it's great.
And awesome.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
That's so good for the soul.
It is.
I love making myself uncomfortable.
Yeah, I do too.
It's just so like, it's so humbling.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when I get too comfortable in things, I like start talking with all this confidence and then I'll like see or hear a clip of myself and I'm like, I'm sorry. Who
is she?
Yeah. And then I'll enter into another uncomfortable era and then I get humbled again. And it's just like ebbs and flows and mountains and troughs.
Mountains and troughs. A lot of troughs for me. Yeah. But I mean, then you look back and it's cool because you're like, a lot of people, okay, you go to college, you graduate college, or you're done with high school, or you like leave your nest, whatever it is, of your parents' house when you turn 18 and you get an apartment and you get a job. And then, whatever that first step is, you look back and you're like, oh, I totally did that and made that happen. And now that's something I don't feel uncomfortable with anymore. And I know I can tackle in the future. And I think that's the whole point, we're trying to make with doing things, solo, whatever that may be, is that it just creates this comfortability with something you felt uncomfortable with that you now can kind of like put in your back pocket. And you're like, I can totally navigate that and be like a successful, independent human on my own. And then also with whoever I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by, whether that's friends or a partner or whatever it is, that you're like good to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love it.
So we encourage it. If you have questions, we also reach out to us with your like questions on being solo, traveling. If you like need, suggestions of what to do and you just don't know, we're quite resourceful with that.
Yeah. The old Hey Thanks podcast Instagram is popping off. So get in there. But also I think one more thing on that is like solo business.
Ooh, yeah.
Endeavors. If you want to try something, try it. If you want to start something, start it. Don't wait for something or someone because you'll be waiting forever. And chances are like you're going to want to do this for yourself. There's a reason your heart is like pulling you towards it. Just do it. Just start it. You can't wait for somebody. You can't wait to move out. Like, oh, I'm going to wait for, maybe that makes sense for you. But I think there's always a way to do something. And if you want to do it and you're not finding people to do it with, figure it out.
Yeah.
Do it. Make yourself uncomfortable.
Lean on yourself, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Lean on yourself.
Lean on yourself and me. Are there any because you've done a lot of that, I feel like, solo business ventures, and I think you're really good with, authentically sensing what you need and being okay with either saying no to things or being like, hey, I'm going to do this on my own. And it's going to be harder, but I'm going to make this happen. Or having this idea of something you want to do. Ivy just released her first single, actually, which is, you guys should all go listen to it. It's actually, I play it on repeat. Sorry to put you on blast, but I genuinely do. And I mean, that's a solo, adventure you've gone on.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Oh, well, I mean, it's just a gut thing, like your heart wants to do something. And I just figured out like how to do it. I just took one step in front of the other and I was like kind of waiting for something to be like, nope, or like stop me. And it never did. And it just kept feeling like, yes, keep going. So then I just kept going. And yes, it's scary to meet different producers or go into the studio by yourself when you have no experience singing ever, and meeting with somebody you've never met before and being like, okay, how does this sound? And you're like, oh, not great. And, just doing these things alone is so horrifying, but like, it's been such a great, humbling process and like a learning process. But I think just follow your gut. Like whenever I'm like, oh gosh, I feel weird in my stomach or like, anxiety about whatever, I'll like ground down and then just figure out what it is that my soul wants to do. And just know that like, it's probably going to be completely personalized to you. It's not like I can be like, hey, Lo, when you wake up and you want to make a single in Spanish by yourself and like, no, like obviously Lauren's going to be like, you're insane, as like most people, I have a lot of these random ideas and like, you just do it. And there's a reason why you're getting called to do that. Mm-hmm. And you just
do it. Was the first step the hardest? Like being like, oh, I'm going to do this.
No, you know what is... It's definitely been like a whirlwind of like I'd say I had 3 steps or like, yes, yes, yes. And then the fourth one is like crash and burn. And then I have all these like, why are you doing this? Yeah. Why? What gives you the right? And then I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I take another step and I'm like, okay. Yeah. I take another, and then it's another crash and burn. Why are you doing this? Yeah. And so it's just been like a foot in front of the other thing. And eventually I think it's going to level out, but I still have those, but I really like the learning process of it over anything. Just like, the journey has been so wildly humbling.
Yeah.
And different.
I love that. And I mean, I think, just continue to like do what makes you feel good and things that help you grow. That's all. It's the only thing we can do.
Yep. I love that.
Yeah.
Well,
hey, thanks. Thanks, Ivy.
See ya.
See ya.